What time is it? It's nation time.
Greetings, Reverend Amadouile. How are you today?
Quite well, quite well. Thanks for asking.
Good. Welcome to AfterWords. And I want to thank you for a powerful sermon. And I like, just out of curiosity, why is there no better time than now?
I believe that we need to seize the moment. Usually, I'm not a procrastinator. And living in the times that we're in now, I think it's even more imperative to seize the time that we're in. Rather than wasting time, we need to be about being productive, moving forward on all our issues in terms of striving to liberate ourselves, doing what we can do in this day and time with the resources that we have. So there's no better time than now, than the present.
And when I saw the sermon title, I was immediately thought about Thelonious Monk classic bebop tune, Now is the Time. Did you consider that as a possible name?
No, but I'll listen to that at another time. But now that you say that, Thelonious must have been on point. Yeah,
He was, even though he wasn't recognized till much later.
I agree.
You reference your sermon builds off of scripture from the Maccabees, and who were the Maccabees? And I'm just curious because that's one of the books that's not in most Bibles. How that may connect with other, with more mainstream Christians. But who were the Maccabees, and why is this story relevant to African people today?
Well, it's interesting that it's not talked about more because the Maccabees and they get their name from one of the brothers, Maccabeus. Mattathias was the father, and there was 5 sons. And so they were he was a priest, and they belonged to a Hebrew or a Jewish sect that was being invaded or being overrun by Greeks. Antioch Epiphanes was the Greek soldier, general, if I'm not mistaken. And they were trying to overrun the territory where Mattathias and his sons lived. Now, they took a stand on what they believed and the rituals. And actually, that is the actual ritual that brings about Hanukkah. So it was that their resistance, their fighting, their guerrilla warfare that really brought about the idea of Hanukkah. They stayed out fighting for so long, and the people were trying to light candles until they came back, and they only had so much oil for the candles to burn, and it burned longer than they expected, and so Hanukkah was birthed. And so the book itself, Maccabees, is first and second Maccabees, talks about their struggle, their resistance, their encounter with the Greeks. And so that's the book of the Maccabees, and it's contained in what we call the Apocrypha or the hidden books.
So for people that may not know, how is a Hebrew or Jewish story relevant to African people today? What's the connection? I mean, we're talking to Black folks, right?
That's correct. Yeah, so the original teachings, if we go back to original sacred scripture, it comes out of Africa. It's been translated over several thousands and thousands of millions of years, right? So, but the original Hebrews were African people. And so all this took place generally around North Africa. And the people were Hebrews, were African people.
So then we're talking about Black folks.
Yes.
I just wanted to kind of make sure that was clear because, when we talk about Jews and Hebrews, people that don't know, like we might, it just may not be that clear to people.
Yeah, so these were people whose skin was kissed by the sun. They were dark-hued people, like you and me, or darker. And they were a religious sect. And so most ancient religions come out of North Africa. So yeah, they were Africans.
Okay, and you, I think in the scripture, and I'm paraphrasing, but Mattathias, who was the father, he caused to the people to essentially remember the laws of our ancestors. How is that relevant to us today? I mean, what role does remembering our ancestors play in terms of the reality that we face, African people face today?
Yeah, so in our struggle to be a people, to identify with our ancestors, we have to know our history. We have to know our story. And so to be grounded in who we are, we go back and read our history, we tell our story, and we become familiar with those who have gone on before us, our ancestors. And so just as Mattathias was, they were a sacred people. And so the law, or the books of the early Bible, the Torah, if you will, was their law. And so they studied it, they prayed over it, they believed what it was saying. And so he was telling them that if you had a zeal for the law, which meant they had to know the law, and they would read this, on a regular basis. And so currently in our situation, trying to understand that we are African people, we have to know who we are and not take somebody else's narrative for who we are. Nobody else's explanation. We need to know our own history. And so that's really the connection in terms of knowing history. The law for them was their history. It was from their ancient upbringing, if you will.
Yeah, thank you for that. And you summon us, I think, near the end of the sermon, or you tell us now is the time for us to do the internal work. What is this internal work? And the reason I ask, because most people that are Christian or claim to be Christian somehow think that God is going to do everything, and they look for God outside. But what is this internal work that you're referencing, talking about?
So there's always work we have to do on ourselves. If you believe, like most meditative people or spiritual people, the spirit is something that moves us. And so most people, or most Christians, think that they've been saved, or it's other people or other places that not places, other people who need to change. And I think I referenced in the story, there's a story in there about the old man who initially says he wants to change the world, and he keeps looking outside of himself. But as he gets older, he finds that he needs to change himself. And that's really all you can control is yourself. So you change yourself and your outlook, and then hopefully then other people will see how you've changed, and the change will come about. But the internal work is first on ourselves. We find the internal change and move those things out of the way. We become more patient, more empathetic, more passionate, more convicted, if you will. And then we can possibly show the change to other people. We can transform ourselves first, though.
Thank you. How, like Mattathias, in the reference, the story you build upon about the Maccabees or the scripture, he demonstrated a certain zeal, sense of urgency, and spirit that was demonstrated by the Maccabees. How does that translate to the programs, the best self theology program, the best self programs and theology of the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church?
So Mattathias, they were, like I said, they were a spiritual group of people. And now I'm sure, the story tells of the incident where he tells his sons or the followers of the law to flee, to have a zeal, and if you believe in it, then follow me. And they took off to the hills. And so at that moment, it was a decision that was made to fight against the invaders, the Greeks, who were trying to get them to move, to do other things, to believe in the pagan ways of religion and culture. They were trying to move them from what they believed, what the Mattathias and his sons believed. And I think in this day and time, if we are to be grounded in who we are, then we need to understand our history and not be moved from other people coming in and trying to tell us otherwise. We don't believe in a hereafter. We believe in heaven on earth. And so if we understand that, then we ought to be willing to take our time and put our efforts toward a program that instills that in us. We need to be convicted on those things. And that's really what the story of Mattathias really tells us. It's about making a decision in the moment.
And I think if you think about where we are today as a people, African people in America and really worldwide, there truly is no better time than now for us to act. Do you have any closing comments or message you might like to leave our viewers and listeners with as we close?
Well, and I think, yes, I think that where we find ourselves today, the writing is clear. They're trying to erase our history. We need to stand on what we know, not give in. As a matter of fact, we have to push back. And some of the examples I gave was the attack on some of our most educated sectors of our culture, Black women. They're being attacked, their positions, government officials are coming into cities and so forth. We need to take a stand, and there is no better time than now. That's really what it's saying. There is no better time than now to act and make a stand, put a stake in the ground, and move forward on values and principles.
Thank you. Thank you again for a powerful sermon and this interesting conversation.
What time is it? It's nation time.